Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is EVIN McMullen. I lead the squad at Disco, and we are so excited to talk to you about the future and history of fun in the metaverse. If we want to go from the bankless nation where we live now into a cryptopian metaverse, we need to expand our capabilities, our superpowers, the ways that we engage with one another. We currently enjoy financial freedom, which of course is the most fundamental of our rights, because without it we cannot exercise and enjoy the rest of our human rights. But to have fun, we also need the freedom to be ourselves. So to start, I'm going to invite us to enjoy a little history lesson about having a good time in the history before we had blockchains. So first up, we've got the Song Dynasty in ancient China, where the pursuit of happiness has been a constant, since then until now. In the Song Dynasty, there was great political and social turmoil, war, famine, poverty, all of these things that we know to be true of various historical periods in our lives. But fireworks were also invented as a celebratory way to ward off evil spirits. And as the monks had lots of fun blowing stuff up and seeing fun colors in the sky, which actually were just made out of rolled paper and gunpowder, this new pursuit of fun as a function of everyday life, out of the strife of everyday existence, was popularized and then started to reach across the globe by 1240 and hit the Arab world, and by Bastille Day last week, it definitely hit us all here in Paris. So about 100 years before Walt Disney was born, French social dynamics were changing pretty drastically as well. Similar to ancient China, we saw a movement of people from more rural areas into the cities. And with this movement came factories, came poverty, came a cholera pandemic. And so there's a great challenge of these very dense communities living in urban France during this time. But fun fairs were invented, offering a magical and carefree alternative to everyday drudgery, where people could escape to an alternate reality full of costumes and rides and fun and all sorts of colors. And actually this sort of roots back to the word fun, how it is originated in the French language, translating roughly to a distraction from thinking about death. So escapism was really at the root of this pursuit of fun. And we saw that humanity started to appreciate the value of thinking beyond our own mortality. So in this manner, modern fun was born, and that's how we got theme parks and world's fairs and carnivals and all of these sorts of things. So as we know, out of hardship comes innovation, and out of tragedy often returns the pursuit of fun. So around 2008, on the heels of the latest global recession, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace, and others were heating up, solving for social discovery, and forcing us to take the internet seriously as a part of our everyday activities. Web 2 allowed us to connect with others and coordinate all different kinds of fun. Games, social media, even dating apps, things like Pinterest that allow you to collect your favorite furniture. And so Web 2 and the connectivity of search really allowed us to address the discoverability problem of having fun. We now can find the hits of dopamine we want swiftly and easily. We can gang up with the crew that we are looking for. We can buy those shoes that we saw on a television show. Search really turned into this nuanced matching experience for apps and broad variety of different kinds of human coordination. So as we brought the world online, users just like you and me got really used to enjoying low cost, high impact, low friction, high return, instant dopamine. But the challenge here is that all of this growth was enabled by a very predatory economic model where we are the product. And so how might we think about the relationship between complexity, friction, hardship, and the constant pursuit of fun as we move beyond this potentially dangerous, or this knowingly dangerous model? So even today, in the wake of the largest financial crimes of our generation only a few weeks ago, and amid an ongoing global pandemic and recession, we are still, all of us, partying it up in Paris, enjoying experiences in person just like we are here today. We are free minting subsidized NFTs in hot pursuit of fun. We are not looking at token prices if we can help it. So despite all of us being dehydrated and in a bear market, we are all still seeking vibes. So let's all drink some water, hope they bring the coffee bar back outside very soon, and we can talk about how Web3 pursues our very own flavors of fun. So, Web3 is no different. Those of us in the room are just like the citizens of the Song Dynasty, the citizens of Industrial Revolution France, and the people that we were just years ago during the rise of connected networks and social media. The mainstream moments that we have had so far in Web3 are really about fun, indicating social status with our NFTs, collecting new kinds of communities, using game-like designs and dynamics to play with valuable tokens in DeFi, and coordinating with our friends to hang out in DAOs, gaining access to things like great parties, content, alpha chats, clothing. And so this progression from DeFi into NFTs, into more social interactions, it was really born when we realized that Ethereum could be scaled at home, that its composability could be utilized by any person because we could enjoy DIY tokens. We could create assets, throw them out into the world, and then invite a community to join us in this pursuit of interesting coordination games. So, our token bags got heavy in DeFi summer. Stimulus checks in the United States made their way into the hands of degens who are excited to buy JPEGs. And this, new kind of fun with NFT summer appeared with the embrace of ERC 721, which meant that media had a way to come to Web3. No longer would we just be pushing financial assets back and forth at each other. So this, fun with a new ability to express ourselves in crypto assets like NFTs beyond simple financial data invites us to gather communities around more than financial assets and more than token prices. However, this new sense of community that we're seeking, this desire to gather with one another, is extremely limited, and its capabilities are not yet reaching the kinds of experiences we hope to have, although they're better than anything we've ever had before in Web3. As we know, fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens on chain provide next to no context. I don't know how you got your NFT. I don't know if you traded it from another wallet, if you bought it, sold it, stole it, earned it, were gifted it, airdropped it. And so without context for how people come together in a community with an unfettered secondary market for membership, it becomes really difficult to determine who's in the room and to coordinate a party with all of these people in the room. But we kind of deserve this. Like, the world was watching us. We had with these incredible bull runs and the amazing things we're building, and we reached for speculation, right? Speculation is no match for the lack of utility in our space right now. NFT financial speculation, just like yield farms, over-index on the importance of a token-driving community instead of building communities with a goal and an ongoing identity where people are brought together over more than a shared financial asset. There's a reason that the equities markets don't throw down like the DAOs do. But Web3 did not invent these underlying human tendencies to gather and collect shared identity and coordinate and curate fun. We can think of, in addition to things like fun fairs, country clubs and group chats, educational materials, and merchandise that have brought people together around brands and different kinds of content. But as we've learned the hard way through several market cycles here in Web3, the most valuable bonds cannot, and perhaps should not, be quantified merely as a financial sum. So imagine a world where everything just works. When I was a kid growing up, my view of the Metaverse was deeply informed by a TV show called The Jetsons, where in their version of the future there exists no standing in lines, no filling out forms, no downloading apps with a rotating QR code so that you can get your badge to get into the conference. If we imagine how the future could go for us, we've got a few options, but I see two pretty clearly. One, where the community that we exist in enjoys an overlord, a centralized overlord, very similar to the Web2 ecosystem that we have today, where we have greater flexibility, greater speed, we wait in fewer lines, we fill out fewer forms, and that is because there is a surveillance state that is ensuring this smooth movement of parties from one place to another. Alternatively, we can build a self-sovereign identity layer that allows us to move freely through the world as the Jetsons do, but without a creepy big brother enabling each transaction, each interaction between our apps, between our dApps, between chains. So I think the overarching goal here, regardless of which path we take, although I think we have an opportunity here to choose one, is that we should spend less time filling out forms and more time in the spaces and experiences where we're trying to hang out. And I think it's important for us to remember as we contemplate the history of fun, that fun is for everyone, regardless of your location, regardless of your socioeconomic status. Around the world, on average, people spend 6 hours and 57 minutes per day staring onto screens, interacting with online content. And so, despite the Web3 social enthusiasm of venture capital investment and companies and think boys alike, Web3 is returning to traditional social forms of interaction to get our vibes. So we're seeing a remarkable leveraging of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, even Pinterest, to be able to facilitate the social coordination of Web3 asset-based communities. I don't know if you guys remember, there's what it's called now. There's like an anonymous question application. Now it's becoming popular again on Twitter, or on Instagram rather. The previous version, about 5 to 8 years ago, I think it was called FormSpring. But essentially what is happening is that because we don't have social coordination tools that are Web3 native, we are feeding surveillance capitalism with our content so that we might better organize around our JPEGs. So we are leaning harder on the Web2 tooling that allows us to gather, like Twitter and Discord, which is continually centralizing our activities. So the cycle repeats, the speculators are leaving because of the current market conditions, but the people in this room are still here, showing up to make a meaningful impact on our ecosystem that we care so much about. So it is our responsibility to make tools for fun in a Web3 native and accessible way for the entire world, so that we do not lean even harder on the tools of the surveillance state to achieve the delight that we seek. Your definition of fun is just as unique as you are, and so the unique combination of our Web3 tools and capabilities, plus all the data exhaust that you generate as an individual, give us the pieces for better discoverability and a better personalized version of the fun that you seek. At Disco, we believe that the atomic unit of Web3 is not a public address. It is a person. We are not just building coordination tools between protocols. We are building human coordination tools between human beings. You are the same person when you show up with your Ethereum address, your Solana address, and your Bitcoin address. So why is it that our apps and dApps and protocols don't agree? We have the opportunity to logically centralize the data that we create around ourselves, physically decentralizing it in the places where it makes sense to avoid censorship, to maintain autonomy, to maintain security. We have a chance to compete against the Web2 industry leaders at their own game, but that means we need to reach out to everybody else who's not in this room. We need to create a world where the average person feels welcome and excited about what we are doing here. And what that means is that we need to sing a different song to them. Web3 is not competing against centralization and surveillance or even ownership when it comes to the rest of the world that is not in this room here with us. We in Web3 are competing against scale, stability, convenience, and fun. And if we do not prioritize those features, we are not going to win. It is time to move beyond skeuomorphic products and think about where the chains have gotten us this far. But this is a game about data. And who could our data be more valuable to than us? So we talked about the opportunity of social summer, Web3 social, full of Twitter alternatives and immutable social graphs, mountains of Discord channels filling up with spam as we speak right now. But the challenge of this spam, the complexity of public and permanent tweets comes from the fact that we are relying on the models we already have, and we don't have the account abstraction or the ability to enjoy non-financial data that is required for us to have a truly self-sovereign social interaction. We are relying upon our existing Web3 public blockchain infrastructure and mimicking Web2 experiences. So we are strengthening the surveillance state by freely creating a social graph available to all enterprises on-chain when we make these choices. But we can avoid this dystopia by using off-chain data, where 99% of the internet's information already resides and thrives without a need for a blockchain. Because, unless Ethereum becomes the only API upon which humanity relies, it will not be optimal to put personally identifiable information about human beings there. So, little alpha leak for you guys. You can do more with your keys than mess around with blockchains and send financial transactions. We are not yet fully leveraging the self-custody of Web3 that we enjoy when we take custody of our own key pairs. We are leaning hard on Web2 tools because we can't express more than our money on chain. But, fun fact, you can use your existing private keys to sign data that is off-chain, private, revocable, written about yourself or another party, can be owned and controlled by the subject of that data. So what this means is that I, a Bitcoin address, can write a statement about you, an Ethereum address. You can share it with her, a PGP key, and we are all on the same page. We are in a group chat without the need for translation, without the need for bridges, without the need for gas fees. Just because your keys came from a blockchain doesn't mean you have to use a blockchain to send messages from them. We can communicate at the speed of an API with relatively negligible cost, sharing the exact same data that we would try to do on chain in a more privacy-preserving way. So, to reiterate, public blockchains are not appropriate places to store data about human beings. If you publicize your data so that everyone can see it in God mode, then we have created an equal opportunity surveillance apparatus, not a step away from surveillance capitalism. Blockchains are perfect for public, immutable, transferable assets for which we might otherwise have a double spend problem. But for all of the non-financial information that doesn't require global public availability in perpetuity until the heat death of the universe by everyone on Earth and in space with an internet connection, you don't need that level of sharing and permanence, then we can enjoy much greater flexibility, speed, interoperability, and efficiency when we take all that data off the chain. But Evan, you might ask, how can I have a personality in the metaverse if we can't express it all on a public chain? And if it's not on chain, is there a way to use our keys to have true ownership? And of course, this is all possible and more, but it is up to us to adopt these technologies and to make them accessible to all. So at Disco, our definition of the metaverse is your ability to show up in any digital or physical environment and receive a personalized experience as a result of the parts of yourself that you choose to share. This means that Web3 can be accessible to all when we can provide personalized experiences for anybody walking in the door without the need for complex technical interaction or high technical literacy. Web3 should no longer be a stuffy diversion of the upper class. We must make it accessible to the average person everywhere. And that means we must commit to low or no cost onboarding into a world of data that can more effectively capture the human experience than our public chains can. We need data that can move seamlessly between apps, between chains, between protocols without bridges and gas fees. We can avoid platform lock-in by not binding ourselves to a single chain. We can manage risk by making our data interoperable and supporting a plurality of providers and ecosystems. We can maximize consent for our users by sharing data on only a need-to-know basis. Building Web3 experiences with decentralized technologies can enable that future. So we can add a few new tools to our arsenal in order to do that. You might be familiar with fungible and non-fungible tokens. These are our public, immutable crypto primitives. Some of you may not be familiar with decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials, which are our off-chain primitives that can still interact with smart contracts and engage across chains. These interoperability standards were developed by the World Wide Web Consortium. So I call them the high wizards of the internet. These are the folks that brought us URLs and TCP/IP, HTTPS, and all the infrastructure that we are using to feed together here today, all of our coordination tools from Web 2. So a few weeks ago, Tim Berners-Lee, the godfather of the internet and the head of the W3C, struck down opposition from Google to elevate some new technologies to the level of URLs and all these other coordination tools that we've had in Web 2 so that we might connect the networks of Web 3 in this free, interoperable, and expeditious manner. These primitives are called decentralized identifiers and verifiable credentials. Decentralized identifiers are like aliases for your existing public addresses. So you can retrofit your Ethereum address, retrofit your Bitcoin address, so that it might get in group chat with 100 other kinds of keys without the need for translation. And they speak then you can speak among those different identifiers in the common language of verifiable credentials, signed attestations written by one party about another. So, by adding these new tools to our arsenal, we can enjoy the superpowers of leveraging off-chain data in the same way that we've come to enjoy tokens and on-chain assets, but with added flexibility and privacy and fun. So your identity and your reputation are the keys to a metaverse that is driven by our accomplishments and our interactions, not only by our purchases and our monetary earnings and capabilities. Because we are more than just what's in our wallets. And I'm so excited to see all of you beautiful people express yourselves to the fullest, because I know that you are more of a person than what sits inside of your financial accounts. So if we're going to carry all these awesome non-financial things around, you're going to need more than just a wallet. Wallets are for money and backpacks are for the rest of your stuff. So it's time for your decentralized identity, or like we say at Disco, your personal data backpack, to carry all your stuff across the metaverse, across chains from Web 2 to Web 3. That backpack can be full of your ID cards, your memberships, memories, accomplishments, accolades, and more. This collection of verifiable credentials that describe you can be a fuller expression of yourself than financial accounts ever could. So just like your backpack in real life, you should decide who gets to see that data, how they're allowed to interact with it, where you take it next. So verifiable credentials, as I mentioned, are kind of like a Web3 DocuSign. These signed attestations written by one party about another can be revoked or set to expire. They're just signed JSON blobs, so files, kind of like a PDF. So you can store them wherever you like, in private decentralized storage encrypted against your keys, which is how Disco helps you maintain your data backpack. You can store them on your device in a hardware enclave. You could even print them out if that's how you roll. But the most important thing is that the data that describes you should be owned and controlled by you, signed with your existing keys, managed in a manner that is not public to others, not stored on a public chain. You want minimum disclosure, your life is on a need-to-know basis, and only the VIPs are invited. We as human beings are organic, flexible, evolving people, and so our data needs similar flexibility. We are not singular statements of public and permanent attestation. We are human beings. And so it is that flexibility, not immutability, that will help us have fun together and solve more complex coordination problems than just pooling money. Verifiable credentials will help us express ourselves with rich data in accordance with our consent, as God and Madonna intended. So now that we've got the tools, we've got the pieces, how do we get there? The Web3 community is starting to agree that we need account abstraction. We need some way to append rich metadata to our addresses in a manner that does not dox everybody. So from Ethereum to Bitcoin to even Cardano, this agreement is reaching consensus, reaching a swell. So if we want to manage an increasingly complex set of identifiers and avoid fragmenting ourselves across accounts and profiles of platforms, we need to have a shared commitment to interoperability across all of these ecosystems, because the atomic unit of Web3 is not an address, it is a person. We need to adjust our infrastructure to support the individual regardless of where they operate on the web. And we are already seeing this play out with an emphasis on single sign-on. Logging in with apps like MetaMask, feels like one step toward the goal, but the reality is that we are still subject to platform lock-in on individual chains and within Web3 apps that are simply offering different modes of displaying the same on-chain data over and over again. We love DAO interfaces, but if we're only pulling from public data, then we're really just rehashing the same information that everybody has in cuter and cuter UX. And so in order for us to encourage more cross-chain data availability within different ecosystems without doxing everybody, we need to come together around some new technical capabilities. Prioritizing data availability over user control is dangerous, and projects throughout Web3 are harming their users as they pursue this process already today. But fortunately, many builders from across these ecosystems understand that adding privacy later is not a viable solution, and building tools without ethical guardrails can harm early adopters in catastrophic ways, especially marginalized communities. So, it's all fun and games until Web3 Tinder publishes your right swipes on chain, and suddenly we start to ask the question, data availability to whom? Finally, we need Web3 applications to work together to create seamless, delightful, and fun experiences that just happen to be decentralized, self-custodied, and composable. Let's not lead with that part, let's lead with the fun. As new adopters enter our ecosystem, they will need to be met with experiences that exceed the expectations set for them by Apple, or else we risk the possibility of becoming features inside the centralized system we already know today. This means that we have common ground ahead despite the tribalism of Web3, because multiple chain ecosystems are excited about these capabilities because they will benefit their own communities, and as a consequence, we can adopt decentralized identity technology to deliver greater value, control, and capability. We can be the same person when we show up to one metaverse, when we show up to another, and we can carry parts of our reputation under our consent from one of those contexts to any other. The outcome will be rich interoperability and a banging app layer, and we can avoid the perverse yield farm incentives and attract builders with actual fun. So thank you all so much for joining me here today. If you are excited about the future of fun, please share your metaverse dreams with us at disco.xyz. I cannot wait to hear all of your wildest imaginations, and I'm excited to join you in building a world that prioritizes having a really good time. So I'm Evan McMullen, and I will see you in the metaverse.
Thank you, Evan. All right, coming up next.